Welcome to the Ironwood Strength Show, episode 3. It's October 10th, 2023, and welcome back. So, today I'm going to touch on the last episode a little bit because I realized afterwards I left something out that I was really wanting to hit on. Then we're going to go into just a few tips. I'm going to start out kind of basic with these episodes. If you can't master the basics, you can't advance. You can't get better. So I'm going to start instead of starting with some of the stuff, the more interesting stuff. I'm going to start out with some of the basics. Um, this episode will probably definitely tie into some people uh, that general population can get something out of this, all the way to advanced athletes. I mean, you're really advanced are probably already doing a lot of these things, but it's still good to hear. Maybe I'll put a new spin on it. You can get something out of or take away to help your training and help your workouts. All right, so starting out in the last episode, I talked about squatting and knees, and I really emphasized the fact that squatting is not bad for the knees, provided that you're utilizing good technique. Because squatting with bad technique is bad for the knees. I started to tell a story about my little cousin who um, had told me that he was going to quit squatting or he wouldn't squat because it bothered his knees. And like I said, I didn't get into that. I didn't pursue it because I don't work with him. I don't know what his squatting looks like. I don't know how he's being taught. I don't know any of that information. So I didn't want to pursue and say, no, squatting's not the problem. Um, but fast forward, I just found out. Oh, actually, it's been a few weeks now but he tore his ACL playing football. So, and I don't know the nature of this. I just want to hit some things with this. You know, we like to blame squatting when we have knee pain, and we don't even know if that's the reason, but it commonly, I mean, person after person blames squatting for that. And but one of the things that we also have to look at is what does squatting do for us? Um, we should know at this point in time, we should know that squatting is not bad for your knees. But what does squatting help with? Squatting, provided you're doing it correctly, utilizing good technique, is going to strengthen the musculature that protects the knee. Okay, so depending upon how you squat, it will depend upon uh, how or what is strengthened in that nature. So if you're a squatter that sits down more, you're going to be strengthening. Sits down, lets your knees travel forward. You're going to be strengthening your quads to a much greater extent than your posterior chain. Whereas if you're a wide stance squatter, you sit back, your knees don't travel forward at all. Um, you're going to be primarily strengthening your glutes and your hamstrings. All three of those muscle groups are crucial in in protecting the knee joint. The hamstrings, the quads, and the calves. I'm going to throw that one in there. That's not really a muscle you would typically consider a big prime mover of the squat, but those muscle groups surround the knee joint. So all those muscle groups need to be kept strong. Um, the squatting is the best way to strengthen the hamstrings, or probably not the best for the hamstrings. It's very good for the hamstrings. It's probably not the best. Um, but definitely I can't think of another exercise that was better than either a full deep Olympic style squat or a front squat for strengthening the quads. And the hamstrings would definitely be hit by that style of squat, and they would definitely be hit by your wider stance, more posterior chain oriented squat. Um, your glutes also extremely important because they're going to help keep your femur tracked appropriately versus caving in versus going too far to the outside. They're going to help it track appropriately along with the hamstrings so that it stays in proper position when cutting, changing directions, landing, those sorts of things. So for your non-contact ACL injuries, squatting should be imperative, um, if at all possible. Doing it correctly, it is making your knee more stable and more resistant or more resilient to injury. So then I go back to my cousin, and like I said, I don't know the nature of his ACL tear. I have no idea how it happened. Actually, I'd like to ask him, or and talk to him to find out what happened, just so I kind of have an idea. Not that I can change anything, but was it a non-contact? Could it have been prevented? And he might even be squatting again. So again, these are all things I don't know, but if he had actually cut out squatting and hadn't been squatting, not keeping his knee strong, could his injury have been prevented if he had been? If he had been squatting, keeping his knee strong, keeping his quads, his hamstrings, his glutes all strong, could that have injury been prevented? Even to I would take it even further into a contact injury. Now, contact injuries you can't guarantee because if you get rolled up on from behind, or if you get hit from an angle that's going to, if it's hard enough, your ACL is probably going to tear. Um, but maybe you would have been strong enough to resist that. Maybe it would have kept your knee in better position, even with that contact. That's one we can't know, but that possibility is there, provided the strength is there. Um, so I think that you know, just going back to all that, squatting takes the blame for a lot of things, but no one ever gives it credit. Other than the strength coaches and the people that actually know, and have studied it and have lived it. You know, we try to keep getting that message across, but it keeps falling on deaf ears. So um, we've got to start we've got to start changing that message. And I don't know the best way to do it other than to keep saying that, but squatting is very important. And there are people that shouldn't be squatting. I'm not going to say that. From injury issues, from just basic structural issues, you know, and I'm not going to get into who should and who shouldn't, but for the most part, most athletes are going to benefit from squatting, and it's going to help protect their knees, not destroy their knees. If their knees are hurting every time after they squat, we probably need to look at technique, look at flexibility issues that may be causing bad technique. But just eliminating squat, that's not the answer. Okay, so that's catching up last week, finishing off what I missed. And I didn't rewatch my episode. I just think that I missed that and did not get my message across correctly, so wanted to do that. Today, gonna go over some few basic tips that I've seen time and time again, that people have problems with, and it causes them to not achieve the results that they want. So these are not anything that are earth shattering. You've probably heard it before, but like I said at the start, maybe I can put a new spin on things um, that'll help you be more consistent, help you get in the gym more, help you find different ways. Maybe I'll just open up some different ideas um, that'll help you do better with your workouts and with your training. First thing, make your bed. All right, this sounds like the dumbest thing ever. We're talking about workouts, we're talking about getting in the gym, we're talking about getting stronger, and I'm going to tell you to make your bed. Um, Absolutely, make your bed. And I get this idea, and I realize this is going to be all flipped around backwards because that mirror effect, because I'm doing this with the cell phone. But this book right here, Make Your Bed, by Admiral William McRaven, who was says right on the front of the book, he's retired from the U.S. Navy. Um, the first chapter, it's a real small book. You can tell it's not a very thick book. It doesn't take long to read. He just gives a few tips that can, small things that can make a difference in your life. And the first chapter of the book, as well as the title of the book, is about making your bed. So, what does making your bed have to do with getting a bigger squat? Um, to me, quite a bit. Because what he talks about in the book is you want to start your day in a positive note. Okay. Um, you want to accomplish something very early on in the day because that's going to set the rest of your day up for success. And by establishing a task that you do very early on in the day, you've already accomplished something. So now it puts your mind in this mindset that, okay, my first task is done. What's the next task that I need to move on to? Okay. For me, making my bed sets my tone. If I have a room, my bedroom is a disaster, then my mindset is not right. Okay. Every time I walk in that bedroom, whether it be in the morning or whether it be in the afternoon or whether it be in the evening, after a long day of work, every time I walk in that bedroom, if the bed's not made, that room is a disaster. I don't care, and that's immediately goes right to my mindset. What how is everything just so bad right now? It doesn't matter how clean and how orderly everything else in the room is. If the bed is not made, the room is a disaster. Okay? That's setting that tone in my mind. If the bed is made, even if the rest of the room is not perfect, if the bed is made, because it's the center point, it is the main focal point of the room. Okay, so if that bed is made, already everything else just feels better in that room. And that's the main room of your life, is that bedroom. So getting that bed made, getting that first task of the day knocked out has already started you off on the right foot. Next thing, got to eat that frog. Okay, I got this idea from a coach that I worked for, Tim Contos. He's out at Virginia Commonwealth University. Um, and he would always say, you got to eat that frog. And where is that? That comes from a book. And the book, I'm trying to read this right now because I want to say it correctly. Not that it's that hard. But the book basically, or the basic description, it says, I'm having a lot of trouble with this. There we go. Um, what that means is that it's about overcoming procrastination and learning to manage your time. So the thing that you um, that's the most important, the thing that's most important to you, you want to get that done first. And that's eating that frog. Um, train early. Train early in the morning. Get that thing knocked out of the way. So training to me is one of the top priorities. It's probably not the most important priority, and it probably shouldn't be for anyone, but training is a very top priority for me. So I want to get that done early. I want to get it knocked out of the way. I want to get it done. I don't have to worry about getting back to it later in the day. So, and I'm going to go, a couple things here is that, if you put it off, you've always got that hanging over your head. Man, I got to get that workout in. I didn't get my workout in this morning. Now it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I've got all these other things piling up at work. I got the such and such and such and such after work. I got to do this when I get home. And it's putting me getting to my workout about 7 o'clock at night. Don't let that happen. Because when you get home at 7 o'clock at night, or you get done with all that other stuff at 7 o'clock at night, um, or some of those things may take longer. You leave work at 5 or you leave work at 4, and you start getting to those things that you have to do after work, and they end up taking longer. The next thing you know, it's 9 p.m., and you don't feel like training anymore. I've been there. I don't feel like training. I won't start a workout at 9 p.m. I'm not going to do it. Um, so you want to get that done. You want to get it done, knocked out early in the day, and you just have to make it into a priority, and say, I'm gonna get up early, get it done, and you'll be surprised at how much better you feel getting to work at whatever time that may be, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. You get to work and you actually feel better, your head's clearer, and you'll do better throughout your day getting that stuff done, provided you got your workout in, your priority, done early. Okay. The longer you put it off, the harder it is to get in. So just go ahead, eat that frog, get up early, get it taken care of, and things will start getting better. And I'm going to kind of hit more on this, so I don't want to go too far in depth too soon. But the next thing I have is establish a routine. When are you going to train? And when do you adjust? All right, because life is not perfect. It's not going to work out every single time that you're going to be able to train at that exact time. And when I worked with college athletes, yeah, they were required to be there at that exact time. And the only time that that wasn't is when they had something, maybe they had a test that was scheduled at a different time and it was conflicting with their workout, or something going on for class. But 95% of the time plus, the athletes were going to be there at their scheduled time. Why? They established a routine. So they were there when they were supposed to be there. It's the same way in real life. And hopefully those athletes that I worked with and that are working around the nation, as not just the athletes that I worked with, um, but hopefully those athletes going through college are learning that, oh, I had an established schedule throughout college, and I got X, Y, and Z done. And I got X, Y, and Z done every time they were supposed to be done, at the time they were supposed to be done. And hopefully they took that with them and used that throughout their life. And I'll tell you, football players, especially at the Division 1 level, have one of the most demanding schedules that you will see. They're going to meetings, they're going to practice, they're going to they have different things that they have to meet with their position group meetings. They have offense defense meetings. They've got special teams meetings. They've got to get their workout in. They've got a strength conditioning session throughout the day, and they've got practice. They've got film. They've got to go to sessions for film. They've got and they've got all their class demands as well. They've got certain hours that they have to get in through different study sessions. They've got to meet all the different, if they were working in a group for class, they've got to get to that. It is very time consuming, especially in season. So they operate on a very strict schedule, but yet they don't. Some do, but for the most part, they don't miss things. They're there every time. Why? They have an established routine. And when something comes up, they can make that adjustment. If something comes up in your life, oh, I have this meet. I always train at 3 p.m. Okay. Always train at 3 p.m., but today I have a meeting at 3, so this is what happens when I can't train at 3 p.m. Maybe it's you slide it to the next day. Maybe you do it at a different time. That's the day that you wake up early, or whatever the case may be. And the same thing, you're doing that. You're eating that frog. You're up training every day at 6 a.m. But this one day you have to be at work an hour early. Now you can't train at 6 a.m. Do you move it to 5 a.m.? Or do you do it at another time of the day? Or do you just simply slide it over one day? But have that set in place. Have a plan. My freshman year of college, I was not consistent in my training the first semester. So I established a penalty. I broke my arm the second semester, so I didn't. I was working out, but I did it in a class, and it was completely different anyway. So my second year, because of that first year, I realized my inconsistency. So I established a penalty system for myself. You know, and it wasn't anything complex. I wasn't making myself do up downs or anything like that, or taking stuff away from myself. But what I did is I said I got one day to make up a workout. If I can't get it in on Monday, I can push it till Tuesday. But if I don't get it in on Tuesday, I miss the workout. Well, that wasn't acceptable by my own terms. So what happened was I very rarely missed a workout. And when I did, I would slide it over one day. And if it didn't happen that day, it didn't happen. But that almost never happened because I committed to myself that I'm going to do it on this day. And here is how I'm going to fix it when I can't, because things do come up. But I can't keep just pushing things off. Okay? If you just keep pushing things off, when does that end? At what point? Now you pushed something off for a whole week. You've missed a whole week of workouts and you've pushed everything back a week. Then it's a week and a half. Like how does that end? One day. I gave myself one day. I either made it up that day or I missed the workout, and missing a workout was not acceptable to myself. Okay, so that's establishing a routine. The next thing, and this kind of just ties everything together, is be consistent. Um, if you want progress from your workouts, you have to be consistent. There's no other way around it. If you're not consistent, you're not going to make progress. I used to work with a guy. Um, it was kind of funny, and I'd make fun of him. He's a really good guy, and he wouldn't he would miss workouts. He'd miss like 2 or 3 weeks worth of workouts, and then he'd start working out again, and then he'd hit a PR. Like in 3 weeks, he'd hit a PR, or 2 weeks, or maybe if he was really consistent, maybe 5 weeks, and he'd hit a PR, and he'd be all excited about it. I was like, you don't even know what your PR is. Because your training is so consistent. And I told him this. Your training is so inconsistent. You know, you're just having the normal ups and downs of life. If you miss 5 weeks and train for 3 weeks and hit a PR, you didn't maintain strength during that time. You didn't even get stronger in the 3 weeks you came back. You don't get stronger in 3 weeks other than your nervous system adapting to training a little bit. Um, and so I'd make fun of him. You don't know where you're at, let alone where you could be. If you're consistent for 2, 3 years and you're hitting PRs like you say you're hitting now, that's impressive. But you have no consistency in your training. You don't even know where your baseline is versus where you're peaking at your PRs. You have no clue. But you have to be consistent. You know, if you're supposed to train, you train. Otherwise, you're not being consistent. Um, but I think the biggest question and this is where people really struggle, is with consistency. Um, that they'll do really good for 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks. They'll do really good, and then something will come up, and they miss a workout. Okay, and if they get right back on it, it's not a big deal. Your top lifters will miss workouts. It's not a big deal to miss one workout. But if you have 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, good, and then you have a week it's kind of inconsistent, and then a week you don't train at all, and then you come back for another week, and then you have 2 or 3 weeks where you don't train at all because you got busy, then you have this issue of you're not really making progress. You are being so inconsistent that you're kind of wonder why you're even working out at that point, because you're making the same amount of progress as you make by not working out. So what's the point of working out? Um, and it's the trap a lot of people fall into, and what it leads to a lot of times, eventually down the road, is they end up just quitting and never going back. Um, if you want this to be a part of your life, and you have to make a commitment to it being a part of your life, and this ties into everything I just talked about. Making a commitment, having an accomplishment early on in the day. Eating that frog is the same as making your bed. It doesn't have to be just making your bed. You know, Getting those important things done early so that they are done changes your outlook on and how everything goes on. It also establishes consistency, establishes a routine, and establishes consistency, which is exactly where we're at right now. Um, and you have to ask, why aren't you being consistent? One, is it that you just don't have a routine? If that's it, find that optimal time to work out. Obviously, I'm advocating for early in the morning, and I'll try to give my experience with that here in a minute. But obviously, I'm advocating for early in the morning, but maybe that doesn't work for you, or maybe you have a better time. And don't just write it off as, well, I don't work out well in the morning, or people, same thing with nutrition. I can't eat breakfast. I can't eat breakfast. Yes, you can. You need to find out what to eat. Yes, you can work out in the morning. You just need to do it. And you need to make it a habit. Maybe you need to change. Maybe don't wake up 5 minutes before your workout. Wake up an hour ahead of time. You can do it. You have to make the commitment to actually do it. But establish that routine. If you don't have a routine, that's a problem. The next thing is as far as why aren't you consistent, these are the two top things that I see, is maybe you feel defeated. um, your workouts aren't going well, you're not making progress, you don't have that motivation. It's easy when things are going well to get into the gym because you're making progress. You see it um, almost every workout. You see yourself making progress, and here comes the founder of this program right here. Um, but you see yourself making progress, so it's easy to get in and do it. It's easy when things are going good. When things get hard, when training gets hard, maybe you've had an injury, maybe you've had, um, maybe you're just maybe you're. I don't want to say the word overtraining because that's everyone likes to say different things about that. Most people do not overtrain, and some do. Um, but maybe you're just trying to do too much. And outside life is incorporated in that. It's not just your workouts, but your workouts suffer because you're overworked at the time. Um, maybe maybe you're picking the wrong. You don't have an established plan, or program design, or just uh, your workouts just don't have direction. And it's coming out, and that you're at some point in time it's going to come out with lack of progress. So there's a number of things that can cause you to feel defeated and cause you not to want to go in, but it's very imperative to actually still go and get those workouts in, because it's over time, provided you take the right steps, over time those things will work themselves out and you will start making progress again. um, but if you quit, or if you start becoming inconsistent, they won't fix those things won't get fixed, and you will continue to not make progress. You'll continue to feel defeated until your consistency is no longer there, and eventually you end up quitting and not coming back, or maybe taking a couple years off and then trying to get back into it, which is never a good place to be in. It feels horrible, both physically and mentally. So it's better just to stay in the game. Um, the other issue with being consistent is location. Okay, and this would probably be my third and last one as far as why aren't you consistent. Some people like to go to a gym. Some people have a crew that they go train with, maybe at a private gym. Um, Others like the commercial gym setting. That's fine. Uh, some people like to work out at home. That's where I'm at. I prefer to train in my own gym, which is in my garage, and that's the best place that I can be for myself. But you need to find a location that fits your mentality and fits your budget, that you can be consistent with. You know, if you have to go to another gym, there's travel time you have to plan into your day. There's if you're training with a crew or with a training partner, you have to be work with their schedule. It can't just be about your schedule. It's got to work with their schedule as well, and you got to work together to make that work out. Um, some people are motivated by going to another gym, which is fine. If you're motivated to go to another gym and work out, then do that. Maybe pay your dues of what you have to do to train there and get it done. Um, some people are more motivated to just step out into their garage and get a workout in there. Some people are not motivated to train at home. They have all the equipment and hey Sally, and the desire becomes less for whatever reason. Their desire to train is not as high when they're in their own place, when they have the convenience of their own place, as it is to go to a gym and work with a crew or work with a team, or a training partner, or go to a commercial gym setting for whatever reason that works better for them. But you need to understand what works for you. Financially, it is much better to have everything at your house. I can promise you that. It takes a little bit to get set up, but having everything at your house and not having to pay those gym dues, uh, and having the convenience factor is definitely better to have it at home. But like I said, the motivation factor may be greater for you to go somewhere else and train. But you have to understand yourself and make those decisions accordingly. Okay, so a few things on consistency. Um, I'm going to give you two different times in my own life. I'm going to go into that whole feeling defeated thing. So I had a period of time when I was, it was lower 20s, lower to mid 20s, that I was training at a university. I was training at two different places. I got a membership at a gym, and I was going to another university and training in both of those places, depending upon the day. And I was working for that university at the time as well. So if I was working there, then I would train there on that day. And if I wasn't working, I'd go to the other gym because it was closer uh, by about 40, 45 minutes. So, um, but I was not making progress during that time. I mean, I was not making progress. I mean, there's a good year and a half, year to year and a half at most that it didn't matter what I did, I was not making progress. Um, and actually got to the point where I was doing a lot of work at for my job as well. I was working for Walmart at the same time I was coaching, so I was putting in quite a few hours trying to train at the same time. And I don't believe my consistency was an issue at that point in time, but it was difficult. Okay, it was difficult, and where it really showed up is that I was a power lifter. It showed up in my numbers. My numbers were just going down. I couldn't. Didn't seem like anything I did would make them go up. Did not feel strong, and but I stayed consistent, and it got to the point where I had a hard day. I mean, a few extremely hard days at work, setting steel, getting ready to open a new store, and ended up getting sick. I mean, I felt horrific. Engaged at the time, went into the bathroom, thought I was gonna puke. And I know it seems like I'm getting way off topic, but ended up not puking, but I was on the floor and I couldn't get myself up. So my fiance actually had to help me get up and get myself back to bed because I was so weak and so physically exhausted that I couldn't do it. So that's the one time that I'd say that I probably was overtrained and that was causing all that. And it started out just by, more gradual, just not being able to make progress. And then I had that episode where I got horribly sick. Um, and that really kind of got me back on track because I backed up at that point. And I kind of backed up on my training and backed up, started everything out slow again, got done opening that store, and my workload went down, and then I started making progress again. But it took me backing up to do it. But the entire time, the one thing I want to say is that I was consistent. If I would have quit, it would have made it that much harder. But it did involve and this is where if you're not making progress, you got to figure those things out as you're going. Not making progress. Okay, back up. What's going wrong? Okay, I'm overtraining and I need to back off my workload, kind of reset, start picking things up again, and before long I was rolling again and making progress. Another time that I'm going to talk that I think shows where the consistency is important when things are going bad was not actually that long ago, just a few years ago. I had quit coaching. I went and took a manual labor job, and it was a struggle at first. Then I took a harder manual labor job, and everything just kind of fell apart. Um, Up until about, January of this year, kind of had a reset, and then I started making progress again. And I would cut my workouts down to twice a week because it's all my body could handle. I mean, I was just physically worn out all the time. And I wouldn't say I was overtrained. I was probably just not the capable of making progress doing what I was doing. And one of the things I looked as I'm looking back at things and I started seeing didn't have that clear plan that I used to have. I mean, I had this plan, I had it divided out, but it just didn't it didn't have the elements in it that had always utilized that were extremely important to me as far as making progress, embracing the long-term plan versus the smaller short-term plans. But I had to embrace that long-term plan again. I had to get back to some of my core training values. Um, and once I did that, it wasn't a matter of not getting workouts in. I went down to training twice a week, and that did not help. But establishing that plan at the same time I was doing this, that I realized this is what I need to do, is at the same time I realized, hey, I now have an opportunity to move my workouts to the morning and get them done early and then go to work. Because there for a while I had to train after work and I was so physically exhausted, I couldn't put out the effort I needed in my workouts. Okay, so again, you have to figure out the problems um, that are causing you to not make progress. And the consistency is a part of this, but this is all going. Look at what it's going back to. Okay, I can't make progress training after work because I'm too exhausted after work. Okay, so now that I have at that point in time, I was working from 3 a.m. to somewhere between 9 a.m. and noon would be when I would get off. Okay. So training before work really was, I mean, yes, I could have made it happen, but I mean, it really would have kind of flipped my entire life upside down as far as, okay, now I've got to train if I'm going in at 3, I probably need to train at like midnight, which means I need to be up at 11, which means I need to go to bed around 3 p.m. Well, if I'm getting off work at 12, that doesn't give me a lot of time to get stuff done. I wouldn't ever get to see my family. So, like I said, I had to work with what I had. Going in at 3 a.m., I would get my workout done after work. But doing that shift, and throughout that shift, I did not have a lunch period. I would work 3 a.m. to noon, or I think it was actually 11 a.m. without having any sort of, I'd have a break, I'd drink some water, I maybe try to get a sandwich in, like a small sandwich, but it was just a 10 minute break. And then I was right back to work. So coming home exhausted, did not set myself up for good workouts. Tried to continue that when my schedule changed, and then it became a consistency issue because I was getting off work at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., sometimes 9 p.m. Well, if I come home at 8 p.m. and 9 p.m., I'm not training that night. So it ended up I was missing workouts. That led me to, hey, I now have an opportunity to lift in the morning before work. So I get up at 5, lift at 6, be at work by 9. And you can start to see how this is starting to change into everything that I've just talked about. I'm now beginning to establish my routine. I'm eating that frog. Getting those important tasks knocked out early. Making your bed. Doesn't have to be making your bed, but making your bed, that concept. Getting those tasks knocked out early. Led into being consistent again. Being consistent again. Now I'm starting to realize, okay, here's my problems in training, my principles that I haven't been following because of blah, blah, blah. And I'm starting to put those principles back in. Now I'm on the path of making progress again. Okay. And this also ties into training as you age and training in general population when you don't always have access to training um, for, when you're a coach, you work in a gym, it's easier to get in. When you're doing a regular job, working 9 to 5 or whatever, you've got to figure out your times and how to get those things done. So that's really what I have to say about being consistent. Now as far as my own personal example, I am getting back on track. I've been getting back on track and making progress for about 9, 10 months now. And it all has to goes back to this entire conversation of being consistent, establishing a routine, getting your tasks knocked out early in the day, eating that frog, making your bed. That's it for today. I will see you guys next week on the Ironwood Strength Show.